Okay. Hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? Today I have a song that I'm working on. Um, I got these vocals a couple of months ago, maybe like pre-COVID or like right when COVID was starting. Um, and the songwriters wrote the song, I believe, with the intention of basically like taking care of each other, and you can kind of glean that from the songwriting, like once you hear it. But yeah, the original song, I didn't necessarily want to have vocalists on it, but I sent it to them and they put something dope to it, so I'm using their vocals for it. I also sent it with like reference vocals from a sample pack that was like a starting point for them. Um, and I mentioned them in the description if you guys want to listen to their music or find them. Their name is Me and Die. And it's these two singers who are really talented songwriters and singers. So yeah, this is the song. I'll just have you guys listen to it first. Yeah. So I really like the melody from the sample vocals, but I didn't want to use the actual sample. Probably because hundreds of other producers have used that sample. That's why here I have this vocal. This is a scratch vocal that Diana originally recorded when she first heard the song. So this scratch vocal, it was recorded. I think she said it wasn't recorded very well. It might have even been like a voice note into her phone just so she could get the idea out. Hey, thanks for the follow, Cordell. Um, and so I think it just started off as an idea in her phone.
So basically, just kept the melody.
And there she is explaining. And I have all the effects and stuff on the sends. So this is just a scratch vocal, but even when I get scratch vocals, I still will start like a basic chain. Like I have like a filter on there. I have the mag EQ, which I highly, highly recommend in investing in. I actually want to get the analog version of this EQ. Um, but the plug-in version sounds really, really good too, and it just makes basically any vocal sound amazing. Like this is a voice note from her phone.
You know I'll catch you when the world falls. Don't worry about a thing. Don't worry about a thing. You know I'll find you when the dark comes. Don't worry about a thing. Don't worry about a thing.
So you can hear she kept the melody, but then changed up. She completely wrote new lyrics, but the concept behind the original lyrics are still there. The sample lyrics are still there. So she retained the concept because that's kind of what I liked about the sample, but then wrote something new to it. And then these are the new vocals. These vocals were recorded properly. I forgot what mic they have. I can't remember exactly what mic they have, but Diana actually used to be one of my students, so she learned a little bit of recording techniques from me. It was more of like a music production course, so it wasn't really focused on recording techniques, but she did learn how to record pretty well, I might say. And so she recorded a bunch of different takes, like including ad libs and like harmonies and stuff like that. They did a really good job of recording everything a producer or an engineer could ever want or need. Um, and so yeah, these are the final, or not final vocals, but these are the vocals that I got from them, and now I need to mix them. And I haven't done anything yet.
I've been watching stars drop from the sky, one by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath, suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, a moment immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there. You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls. You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
This is probably supposed to be here. Yeah, so this is the first drop. Every drop in the song is completely different.
Angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desire.
Okay, so one thing that I do that maybe not everyone does is I like making separate sessions for everything. So, for example, with this one, everything is contained in the session. There's the instrumental, so I have all of the drums here. Everything is in there. All my drum programming, all the samples for the drums, all of the synths and stuff are in here. Even though most of them are frozen, because I'm more towards the finishing of the instrumental. I usually like to get the song to like 80, 90% done before I get a vocalist on it. I don't like it being 100% done and then get a vocalist on it because often the vocals inform the music production. And I usually will kind of shape the production to accentuate the vocals. That way, it doesn't just sound like I just plopped an acapella over the top of my song. It actually sounds like a cohesive idea. But one thing that I like doing is instead of having everything all in this one session, including like the CPU usage of triggering 20 different instances of Serum and all that, I like making it so that I work on the vocals by themselves so I don't have to worry about what plug. I can use any plugin I want, I can use any like CPU usage I want. So what I do is I save a new version. So I'm gonna call this Vox because this is gonna be the vocal session. And then I leave everything else the same except I delete the instrumental, which I know for a lot of people is gonna be kind of nerve wracking. So I delete the instrumental, and I would suggest before you deleting that to make sure that you have an export of the instrumental. So I already know I have that. So I can just come here and then I'm gonna grab this version, which I think is the latest version. Me on warp. Let it load up. So I already know, because I already did this beforehand. I already know that this is the version or closer to the version that I was just playing you guys. And so now it's just one audio file instead of it being 20 instances of Serum and et cetera, et cetera. And then now I have control over the volume level. And then I want to make sure the vocals are louder than that so that I can focus on the vocals. I'm also going to delete extraneous stuff. So I don't need the reference sample and I don't need that first voice note that Diana recorded um, into her phone. Also, um, One thing that oh wait, what's up, Ilio? It's blocking emojis. Hold on a second. I'm gonna switch the modding back to myself. How do I do that? How do I remove? I'm putting Streamlabs in a. Yeah, Streamlabs is way too strict. They're doing too much over on Twitch right now. They're blocking emojis. I don't want that. I don't want that. Stop doing that. Try it now, Elio. Yeah, there we go. Hell yeah.
Stars drop from the sky, one by one, all out of
Perfect. Okay.
alignment.
So first things first with vocals, I usually like this to be decided beforehand. Um, and even when they sent me the files are already organized pretty well where they're labeled properly. So it's like this is the lead, this is the background one, background two, background three, background four. That's something that's really important because with vocals, especially, you're gonna have a lot of files. So having them labeled properly is really really important. Mostly because each take of the vocal is going to have a different hierarchy. So, for example, this is going to be the lead. Hey, what's up, Paulo? How you doing, man? That's Darrison. Now I know. He's a dope producer too. You guys should check his music out. Um, yeah. So here's lead vocals, and I just go through and just label everything first, just like lead vox, or let's do that because I like everything capitalized. So first of all, I have it separated out by singer. And mostly I do that because every singer's voice is unique. Um, and in this case, they're different genders too. They're male and female. And so, just sonically speaking, they're gonna have. I have to treat their vocals differently um, because there's just different frequencies. And then in the hierarchy, you have the lead vocal, which is gonna go smack dab right down the middle. Then we have background one. So I'm gonna say this is gonna be our I'm gonna do BGL one. So background, let's do background vocal left one, and then background vocal R1, because one's gonna be pan to the left, the other's gonna be pan to the right, and then let's copy paste, and then this is gonna be background vocal L2, because this is background vocal left two, background vocal right two. And you can see I've already kind of panned these. I just didn't relabel the tracks. But the second background vocal is hard panned all the way left and all the way right. And then the secondary or the first background vocal isn't panned hard left and right. And that's mostly to put the vocals in a different 3D space. So they're not stacked on top of each other. So they're both not fully left, they're both not fully right. And it kind of fills out the space and it creates a nice and wide vocal um, 3D space. Um, so yeah, same thing here. Just gonna do that too. So Jean Marc's vocals. So there's two singers. There's Diana and Jean Marc, and then his vocals are set up the same way. And this is a very typical way of setting up vocals. And I would suggest everyone do it this way. You need at least 5 takes. Um, and some people go even further. Like you probably have heard before that, like Dr. Dre, for example, will make people do like 50 takes of the same thing. The real reason behind doing that is so that you can basically Frankenstein together the perfect vocal. And a lot of the editing has already been done. And I know that because Diana told me that she put together basically the kind of vocals that they wanted to hear. And I know they do that just in general. They will like they're very like what's the word autonomous in how they record and write. And so these files that I have are already pretty clean files. Like there's not a lot of like correcting that I really have to do in terms of editing. Like there's not a lot of clicks and pops and like really basic stuff that could just mess up a recording. I don't have to worry about that kind of
Stars
stuff.
drop from the sky, one by one, all out of alignment.
Like they're
Everybody's
very clean
holding their breath,
recordings.
suffocating, scared of what next.
So that's her verse, and then
I've
here's
been
Jean
watching
Marc's.
angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desires, screaming out in vain. Numb from all the noise, desensitized to pain, shifting to uncertain.
So some of the things that I can that I know that I have to edit already is what are called plosives. So just like what I just talked into the microphone now, the plosives,
Desensitized to pain,
the p, and you'll hear if you're listening on like speakers, you can hear that like the sub is being activated with this.
pain, pain,
That's like a kick sound basically right here. You can even see it in the waveform.
pain, pain, pain,
Pam, 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 pam.
pain, shifting to
So some of
uncertain
those I'll have to
times,
get rid of with
immobilized,
EQing.
panicking inside. Don't drink down the apathy. Feel everything hold on to me.
Also, I'm hearing a little bit of the instrumental in the background too. So what we can do is do a little bit of cleanup so that the background instrumental isn't being taken over. I'm gonna make sure that I can see your guys' comments. The new Facebook thing. The which plugins do I use? Um, so I use. I've already gone over one that I'm obsessed with, which is the Mag EQ. Um, and the Mag EQ, I think it's a couple $100, but it's definitely worth the purchase because to me this is one of the most like ideal plugins for EQing, especially EQing vocals. It just makes it really crispy and like it gives you that really professional sheen to it. Here you go. Make sure you guys can see it. It has that really nice like airy shimmer to it. And I usually, hey Will, thanks for liking the stream. And I usually use this first. I always EQ things first. Because when you're EQing something, like if I just put a spectrum analyzer on here, you're essentially changing the volume level of specific frequencies. So let's go back to Diana's vocal here.
Stars drop from the sky, one by one.
See, look at
out
all
of
that.
alignment. Everybody's holding their breath.
So even though in the vocal you hear it, it sounds like it's a higher frequency thing,
You know I'll find you.
there's a lot of subs in there. You don't want that sub. You don't want any subs really in your vocals unless you're intentionally you have like a, I don't know, Mongolian throat singing going on and you're doing like a really low sound. So I will even just put the Ableton EQ before that because I'm just going to do a low cut and I'm just going to cut everything on Diana's voice. I'm going to do maybe like anywhere between like 150 to 200. Maybe let's do like 180. And that's just to make sure that there's nothing below that getting to the rest of the plugins that I'm going to put in this vocal chain.
Stars drop from the sky, one by one. All
Now-
out of alignment.
Now with Jean Marc's voice, with male voices, or with people who have, not even just male voices, but with people who have longer larynxes, you have a deeper voice. So with deeper voice people, you, in general, you don't want to cut off the low end of their voice because that's usually where that like smoothness and the like sultriness comes from. So even for example, like somebody like Sade, who has a really like sultry, smooth voice, I probably wouldn't cut off her vocal this high. I probably would push it down a little bit But Diana's voice is definitely higher, and it doesn't have as much low end in it, and that low end is more extraneous, especially because she's singing in a higher
I've been
register.
watching stars drop from the sky, one by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath.
And even in, I will listen to the whole thing just to make sure that she's not going into lower registers, because if she is, I don't want to cut off those frequencies down there in the
You
lower
know I'll
register.
find you
See,
in the
like here, she
dark
gets a little bit lower.
hours.
So maybe I can pull this down a bit.
You know I'll find you in
Yeah.
the dark hours.
See, that already sounds better.
Mm, you know I'll catch you if the world falls. You know I'll find you in the dark hours. Mm,
I want to hear what the whole thing is because I think I edited this a little bit
you know
already.
I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls. You know I got you in every moment, every moment. You know I got if the world falls.
All right, so I'm gonna cut it off right there, and then I'm just gonna expand these because these are probably all lined up perfectly. So right here we have lead vocal, left background vocal, right background vocal, and then here we have harmonies. So that's what the down here these two files are. So if we listen to the whole group,
I've been watching stars drop from the sky, one by one, all out of alignment.
and you guys, if you're listening on headphones, you can probably hear the width that's happening from this. But this is why you do different takes instead of duplicating the vocal. So I know some people, you probably have seen this on YouTube before, where some people will just straight up duplicate the vocal and then pan it left and pan it right and then call it a day. You should not do that because A, you may be introducing phase issues when you just duplicate the same exact audio. I would suggest if you are going to, especially if you're working in Ableton, if you are going to do, if you only have one take, for example, and that's just all you have to work with, you can duplicate that take, for example, like that, but then make sure that you warp it and change the timing slightly. So come in here and like move these around. So like create a bunch of warp markers, and I usually kind of do this randomly because you're trying to simulate the small changes that happen in the human voice. Because you can say the same thing 100 times, but guaranteed you're gonna be slightly different with each time you say that thing 100 times. It's gonna be 100 different ways of saying the same thing, and it's going to be off by 10 milliseconds or 30 milliseconds or whatever. So that's what you're trying to simulate by creating these warp markers and then making really slight changes like that. And then you also want to change the detuning too. So you want to slightly detune both of the duplicated vocals because that basically the same thing again. If you're singing, you're not going to sing in the exact same note because the human body is just not a robot. You're not capable of doing that.
I've been watching stars drop from the sky, one by one.
And you see, it kind of
all out
sounds
of
like
alignment. Everybody's holding their breath.
it's basically sound. It sounds like chorusing. That's why you can get that effect if I went through and I changed this more and I spent more time like incrementally going through it and making it really different. But um, that's why you want to just do the takes, the multiple takes. That's why you want to just have multiple takes of this, because we already have that. We don't need to simulate it. I already have it now because they've taken 3 takes of the same thing, and that's what creates that width.
From the sky, one by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath, suffocating, scared of one next.
Yeah, so you can hear she basically saying the same exact thing 3 times, but they're still different, and that difference is what creates the nice width that you're hearing. The next thing that I do, I have the EQ8 cutting off the lows. The mag EQ, I usually use the presets, so I start off depending on what whether it's male or female, because that'll change where the frequencies are, and then I'll just adjust it to her vocals. So
Stars drop from the sky,
I want to hear it by
one by
itself.
one, all out of alignment.
Also, I want to hear it with a little bit of reverb and delay. So we have a delay there, some reverb there. I'm just using the regular Ableton ones, which is
Stars
rare.
drop from the sky, one by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath, suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
I didn't realize that I had a master chain on
You know I'll
this.
catch you if the world falls.
I'm going to take that master chain off and then only because I don't want the master chain to affect how I'm mixing the vocals because there's like some pretty heavy EQing and stuff going on here and I don't want that to affect what I'm hearing when I'm mixing the vocals. So I'm going to turn that off.
Stars drop from the sky, one by one.
And then let me turn up the
all out of
volume.
alignment. Everybody's holding their breath, suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. You feel
Let's
it
put a
too, don't hold
limiter
your
on just so that's
breath.
louder.
Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
Alright.
Mm.
And then, so yeah, so I have the Maggie Q. And you can hear that made a big difference. Like, this is without it. Let me turn off. I have auto tune on too.
Suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times.
And then you can kind of hear it almost sounds like her vocal is like covered up like this. Like it's kind of boxy sounding. But then when I put the Maggie Q on it,
Suffocating, scared of what next.
it kind of opens it out and it makes it feel more like brighter and less boxy sounding. A part of the boxiness that you're hearing too is gonna come from like the low mid section. So if I boosted this,
Suffocating, scared of what next.
so that's a little bit too much of a boost in that section. So I'm gonna pull down on there and tighten up the bandwidth.
Suffocating, scared of what next.
And then, of course, you have to listen to it in context. So you have to hear it with the whole song.
Suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
Okay, so that's that. And then let me adjust the Maggie Q.
Suffocating, scared of what next.
The S's are really, really intense. They kind of are hurting my ears. So
Suffocating, scared of what next.
that would be.
Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside.
I was just backing off a little bit on the super high frequencies.
Suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized.
And then I'm also going to use a de-esser. I think I have there's the Fab Filter one that's really good, and I'm just going to do the mono one. Oh, I don't have my license for it. I don't know where the fuck that license is. What else? Oh, I have the Waves de-esser too. The Ableton one, or the Ableton, I guess, effect that tries to de-ess. Where is it? No. I think Ableton has a audio effect rack that's like a de-esser. Where is it? Or I guess not. Well, never mind then. I guess it doesn't. I think it used to in the older versions of Ableton, but it's not very good. That's the point that I'm making. It's not a very good de-esser. A good de-esser is the Waves one. None of my licenses are working. I'm not even gonna try it. Deal with license bullshit right now. Is my Waves one working? Okay. Alright, so The de-esser is basically like a multi-band compressor or like a dynamic EQ where it finds a specific frequency and then it ducks that frequency down. So in this case, the S's are too harsh and it's very sibilant.
And scared of what now?
So the scared, like those are kind of like piercing.
And scared of.
And so I want to pull the volume down on those. So there's presets. There's the S, the female S. Um, so I'm gonna pick that one because that's what we're listening to.
Scared of what now?
And you can already hear
And scared of what now?
it's starting to work on it a little. Let me turn it down more.
And scared of what now?
Now, when you're de-essing, you don't want to pull it back too much because then they sound like they have a lisp because you're cutting off all the S's. So you don't want to pull it down too hard. Because you don't want to give your singer a lisp. So make sure that when you're doing this, you don't just do it by eye. Actually listen, because if you start hearing them have a lisp when they're singing, that means you're doing it too hard and you're pulling this completely out, and you don't want to do that.
Holding their breath, suffocate and scared of what next?
See, like now that's a little bit more pleasurable.
And scared of what next? Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized.
Yeah. So you kind of have to find the sweet spot between it being like proper articulation of the word and not hurting your ears. Because if you pull back too much, then you don't have proper articulation of the word. And then if you don't pull it back enough, then it hurts your ears. Because the human ear is really, really sensitive in that frequency range. So you have to be kind of careful about how intense the sounds are in that frequency range. So I DS. So first and foremost, I EQ. Secondly, I have the Ableton EQ, which is more of like a utilitarian EQ. The Mag EQ is more of like adding some nice shimmer to it, and then the de-esser is backing off on this that are coming through. And then now I'm going to compress. So I'm going to use the glue compressor. The glue compressor to me is is a really great compressor to use in this case. I wouldn't even use a third-party plugin in this case. I wouldn't even bother. Yeah, you're definitely welcome, dude. Yeah, vocals are something that a lot of people struggle with. It just takes a lot of practicing with vocals and recording vocals and just mixing vocals over and over and over. It's just experience. It's one of those things that experience just helps the most. And then with the glue compressor, because to me as a vocal compressor works really well because it smooths out the vocal. So when you're compressing, what you want out of the vocal is you want it to be audible at all times because the vocal is what is the center of the focus of the song. So in this case, the lead vocal is important because that's kind of what is like the hook of the song. And so you want it to be heavily compressed, but not compressed to the point where it's like distractingly compressed where you can tell like something's wrong with that vocal, but you do want it to be pretty heavily compressed, especially when you're doing more pop vocals, because you want the volume level of the really quiet sounds to be closer to the volume level of the really loud sounds. And that's part of the reason why I DS before the compressor, because if I compressed before that, those S's would be really, really, really harshly loud, and then the de-esser would have a harder time turning down the volume of those S's. So you want to do the compression after you've EQ'd and after you've de-essed.
Scared of what next? Shifting into uncertain times.
Also, another reason too is that you want to be able to understand what the singer is singing about. You want to be able to understand every word. Because even though you may listen to your song 100 times, a million times, 400 times, the general public has never heard your song before. So if they can't understand the words that are coming out of the singer's mouth, they're probably not going to listen to that song again because they're like, I don't even know what she's talking about. I don't know what they're saying. Unless you're making like mumble rap where that's kind of what the vibe of the song is about.
I've been watching
But in
stars
this case, it's more of like a traditional like dubstep pop type song.
panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there.
So basically, what I'm trying to get is not like a block, not like a fat block of compression. I'm trying to get it a very evened out tone. So if I resample this, I'm just gonna solo that lead vocal. I want to see basically my volume levels kind of evened out.
Certain times
Yeah.
immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there.
Yeah, see the you can already see the volume is much more smoothed out. So the highs are closer in volume to the quieter things, and that's what you want out of your vocals. You want your vocal to basically be the same volume all the way across. And you can see it's more this original file is a lot more dynamic. So like this is much louder, this is much quieter. But then when we look at this one, you can see the volume levels pretty even across the board, and that's what you want out of your vocals. You want the volume level to be pretty even across the board. I just resampled just to show you guys visually what was happening.
Times immobilized, panicking inside. You feel
Okay,
it
so
too,
now we have that happening.
suffocate and scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times.
So another thing that I do a lot is using auto tune. Now there's a bunch of different versions of auto tune. I just happen to have auto tune pro. Um, I would suggest, because of the fact that it's kind of become like industry standard, either getting like actual auto tune or some type of tuner. I do know there is. I think it's. I don't know if it's free. I don't remember if I bought it or not. But there's one that's called Auto Tuna that Beat Lab makes, and Auto Tuna is basically like the Max for Live version of Auto Tune. It's not. It's nowhere near as capable as regular Auto Tune is, um, but it can get you by. If you need like a basic auto tune, it can definitely get you by. In this case, because of the style of the song, I don't need the super hardcore like Lil Wayne auto tune. Hey Dave, what's up, dude? Thanks for hanging out. I don't need like the Lil Wayne or like the super intense like Lil Baby type auto tune, heavily auto tuned vocals. So that's why my retune speed is a little bit slower. You don't want your retune speed to be at 0, and you don't want the humanized to be off, because if I did it like that,
Suffocate and scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized.
that sounds crazy.
Panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath.
So the fast retune speed, that's how you get the robot like T-Pain um, type auto tune. So that's why I backed off on this a bit.
Suffocate and scared of what next.
See, now it sounds a lot more human. It sounds a lot more less like a robot, but it still is tuning. She's saying it really well, so it's not really doing much tuning. It's not working super
One
hard.
by one, all out of alignment. Everybody.
But the human voice naturally changes pitch, even though if you're singing a specific note, like you can go ha, or you can go ha, and that's a vibrato. And usually people enjoy the sound of a vibrato more than they like a straight note. So you want to make room for that in autotune. And you also, like I said, I don't want to be like T-Pain. So turning up the humanize and then messing with the natural vibrato setting will allow space in autotune for the vocal to just be a human sounding vocal instead of it sounding like a robot.
One by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath.
And now you guys can barely tell that there's auto tuning happening. It's not really working as hard to tune. Let me put it afterwards. It's not really working as hard to tune things because of the fact that I have it set to natural vibrato and humanize. Also, one thing that I never see, I see a lot of, I've watched a lot of like YouTube tutorials and stuff on autotune. One thing I very rarely see people adjust is the input type. So you need to figure out like what the input type is. So, for example, low male, that would be something that I would use on Jean Marc's voice. Maybe she's kind of switching between like an alto tenor vocal into a vocal, but that's basically like where on the piano octave you're singing at. So low male is like the bass voice or like a more like a deeper voice, and that's going to be lower on the piano, or like more to the left if you're sitting at a piano. And then the alto tenor is going to be more towards like the middle, like maybe like C2 up to C4. And then soprano is going to be a higher singer, like in a higher register. And so she's kind of fluctuating between soprano and like an alto.
You know I got you.
But for the most part, she's like in the alto range.
If the world falls,
She does get a little higher there. So for the most part, because she's in the alto range, I'm gonna leave it for the input type. But make sure you change that because it will affect how the plugin sounds. It makes it sound a little bit better.
from the sky, one by one.
And then of course you have to put in your key and your scale. This song is in A minor. That's why I label my tracks with that so that I know um, with like what key my song is in.
From the sky, one by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath, suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
I kind of like it when the retune speed is turned up, but it's humanized.
One by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath, suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there. You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
I love playing with auto
From the
tune.
sky, one by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath, suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, immobile.
All right, so we have the lead vocal basically set. It sounds pretty good. Um, so we have EQ, compression. We have a little bit of delay. I'm not. This is not going to be the delay that I end up using. I'm just using it as a placeholder right now so I can hear what it sounds like. With the background vocals, I need to treat them slightly differently because I don't want the background vocal sounding just like the lead vocal. So oftentimes on the background vocal, I won't use autotune. I'll just leave them as is. I'll just leave them as they are. Another thing I do is with the EQ. So let's turn this EQ on, and I'm gonna kind of work on both of the background vocals at the same time.
Shifting into uncertain times, immobile.
So first thing first, with every vocal, pretty much you're gonna cut off the lows. In the case of background vocals, excuse me, you can actually cut them off a little bit more intensely. I'm just gonna copy paste this over because it's gonna be the same thing. Let's put that before the compressor. You can cut it off more intensely because you need less information in the background vocals. You want less information in the background vocals. And then I also will pull this down, and this creates space for the lead vocal to live. So sonically, even though they're all vocals, this is creating the space for the lead vocal to push out in front of the other vocals. And then I usually will cut off the highs to make them a little bit less bright.
Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized.
That way, in comparison to the lead vocal,
Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized.
they sound like they sound like they're behind the lead vocal. They're literally like a backup singer, even though it's the same singer. It's basically making it so that they're in support of the lead vocal and they're not taking over the lead vocal. So this EQ, same EQ on both of them. I'm just gonna copy paste again. And then just like before, I want my volume level to be evened out. So I'm gonna have fast attack, slow release, pretty intense threshold, and I'm just evening it out.
Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath.
Hold on 1 second.
Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
Yeah, so I'm doing the same thing with the compressor. I'm just making sure that the volume level is evened out. It does look to me though that one of these files is slightly different volume than the other, like a general different volume. I'm gonna make it. There we go. That looks about the same now. And that's something that compressing will kind of fix. But I do want them to be pretty similar in volume already. And then if we listen to them together,
Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside.
yeah,
You feel it, you don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
that sounds pretty good.
You know I'll catch you.
And sometimes I'll even, you guys may notice this if you listen really, really hard on vocals. Actually, let's use pedal. I've been using pedal a lot. Is sometimes in vocals, there's a bit of distortion, like a tad bit of distortion. And especially because this is a dubstep track, I can add in distortion and not be too worried about it. But adding in a subtle amount of distortion just makes the vocal pop a little bit.
Shifting into uncertain times.
Alright, so that's on one, and then that's on both.
Shifting into uncertain times.
But it also gives the effect, especially when you do it on background vocals, it gives the effect of pushing the vocal back even more because it is distorting it. It kind of like adds in that almost like cabinet type high frequency pushback. So when you combine all the vocals,
Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized.
I'm going to turn the volume up of the background vocals because we pushed the high mids of the background vocals down a lot in volume with that EQ. So I'm going to turn up the volume to match the lead vocal volume.
Shifting into uncertain times,
That's a little too loud.
immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there.
Nice.
You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
I'm going to take out the because I want that just in the lead vocal. Because that's more of like an ad-lib type, like one of those. And then let's fade so there's no clicks and pops. Just a really slight fade like that.
You know I'll catch you if the world
That way we have.
You know I'll catch you if the world falls. You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
And I'm going to take one of these and put it up there.
Ooh.
That's very auto-tuned. Ooh.
Ooh.
Maybe I'll just use the same one here. Copy and paste.
You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
And then I'm gonna take out this breath, this because she's not going right into it here, so it sounds a little unnatural.
You know I'll catch you.
I know some people when they when they edit vocals, they'll remove all of the breath, all of the like, and breathing in and breathing out. I tend not to do that because it sounds a little bit unnatural that this person is singing this like big like vocal thing and they didn't take a breath first. It's like that's physically impossible. I will though turn down vocal breaths. I won't necessarily completely delete them, but I will turn them down in volume so that they're not really loud. But I still leave them. Um, and I usually only turn them down when it sounds too loud. Like this one doesn't sound too loud.
You know I'll catch you.
Like that's not really that loud in volume. But the way that I do it is just isolate it, just Command to E to split it, and then just turn the clip gain down.
You know I'll catch. You know I'll catch you
Yeah.
if the world falls. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
That sounds too early.
You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
Maybe just take it out.
Ooh, you know I'll catch.
That sounds too auto tune. I'm just gonna take that particular one out.
You know I'll catch you if the world falls. You know I got you in every moment, every moment. You know I got you in every moment. If the world falls.
Maybe for the last part, the pre-drop, I'll just have only the lead. Let's do a little fade.
Every moment. If the world falls.
And then let's take John Marks out for that section.
If the world falls.
Actually, I may want to keep those backup vocals. It makes it sound a little bit bigger. But let's move on to these back to Jean Marc's band background vocals. I am just gonna take the wait, we didn't finish with these ones. I'm just gonna take the chain that I have here. I'm just gonna select all and copy, and then paste it down onto these. Delete those, paste. Delete those, paste. Because these are all background vocals. I'm not really I don't need to like re-emit the wheel. I can just use the same chain basically.
I've been watching stars drop from the sky, one by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath.
So one thing I like doing too, I like the fact that they have this vocal here, because something that you hear in more pro songs is the doubling of vocals or on specific words. And how you get that is by having these multiple takes. So,
Guy, one by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath, suffocating, scared of what next.
and it just makes it so that the songwriting hits a little harder. So, for example,
Stars drop from the sky,
we can do like the sky.
the sky, from the sky.
And then this section, I'm going to mute it.
I've been watching stars drop from the sky.
And then let's do that.
Stars drop from the sky, one by one, all out of alignment.
And let's do that. And this is more of a subjective thing. This is me just like editing the parts that I feel will hit a little harder by having them doubled. And then when you're cutting off things like that, you always want to fade. You don't want it to just start like right there because it doesn't sound natural. It's just like,
All out of alignment.
and you hear a little pop at the beginning too.
All out of alignment. All out of alignment.
So that's why I have a little bit little tiny fade at the beginning. That way there's no pop. And then we hear.
Ain't all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath.
And then maybe we could take out everybody.
Everybody's holding their breath.
Yeah.
Man, everybody's holding their breath, suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into
Maybe we can do.
suffocating, scared. Suffocating,
Cadence.
scared of what next. Shifting into and scared of what next. Scared of what next. Shifting into and
Maybe we can do that.
suffocating, scared of.
Yeah. I feel like this is uh, a really good songwriting about what everyone was feeling when COVID first started.
Suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there. You know I'll find you.
And then I'm going to do the same thing with these because I don't want the whole thing to be doubled. So
Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. You feel
maybe this part, just to make it more dramatic.
immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared.
Also, part of it too is like this is a different section of the verse, so the vibe is slightly different. And that's just like being very aware of the songwriting and the attention to detail in the songwriting.
I've been watching stars drop from the sky, one by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath, suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there.
Alright, so for John Mark's vocals, I'm gonna do the same thing. Copy paste my background vocal chain. You know what? I'm gonna join this together in a group and just call it BGV chain. And then the difference though between their two vocal chains is his is going to be slightly different frequencies because his voice is deeper. So you can hear, if I just left it as is, I'm going to do JM BGV chain so I know the difference. Is that low cut can go lower. And that's because his voice is deeper and I don't want to cut off the lower frequencies in his voice.
One by one.
See, that sounds a little bit too cut off. It almost sounds like it's coming through a radio now, and I don't necessarily want like a futz radio effect.
One by one, all out of alignment.
That sounds a little bit better. Let me pull these down.
One by.
Let me actually just copy that EQ. Same exact thing.
One by one, all out of alignment.
It sounds like it's being auto-tuned too. Is that just me? I don't see auto-tune on here, so never mind. I guess it's not being auto-tuned. Is there auto-tune on the whole group? Nope, there isn't. All right, and then I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna cut out some of the background or backup vocals here. That way, her soloed voice.
One by one, all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath. So
And then, of course, do a little fadey fade on these.
all out of alignment. Everybody's holding their breath. Suffocating, scared of what next. Shifting into uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath.
I'm going to turn this down. I'm not going to get rid of it completely. I'm just going to turn it down a lot.
Panicking inside, panicking inside. tight. You feel it too, don't hold your breath.
Because I want her lead to be a little bit more
You
focused
can't get
there.
scared of what's out there.
I'm also gonna add a little bit of high
All
end
out of alignment. All out of alignment.
because his voice is really low, so I'm not hearing it as well as Diana's background vocals.
Alignment. All out of alignment. Scared of what's out there. Scared of what's out
There. You know I'll find you in the dark hour. You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls. You know I got you in every moment, every moment. You know I got you in every moment. If the world falls.
I think I will have those other vocals in there, the background vocals. It just sounds bigger with the stacks.
If the world falls.
Yeah. Hey. Yo, thanks. Thanks, Chase. I appreciate it.
You know I got you in every moment, every moment. You know I got you in every moment, every moment. If the world falls.
I think maybe no background vocals there.
I've been watching angels walk the line, sirens and devils.
All right, so now we're moving on to Jean-Marc's lead vocal. So I'm just gonna copy that chain that I had on Diana's, and then paste. And then again, I'm gonna switch the frequencies because his voice is lower. I may not need to switch.
Angels walk the line of sirens and devils.
I may not need to switch the alto tenor input on the on auto tune because he's more of like a tenor. He's not really singing in like a bass voice here. But I will take this down a little bit. I don't want to really get into like the subs though, because you don't really want the vocal like pushing the sub speaker. And then I'm gonna change this preset, put it on male vocal A, and then let's listen.
I've been watching angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desires, screaming out in vain. I'm from all the noise, desensitized to pain, shifting to uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. Don't drink down the apathy, feel everything.
So it sounds like it's a lot louder coming out.
So
I'm gonna turn the trim down.
Watching angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desires, screaming out in vain. I'm from all the noise, desensitized to pain, shifting to uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. Don't drink down the apathy, feel everything hold on to me.
I kind of like this. I'm gonna do something really reverbed out with that. In this case too, Diana's singing harmonies here, so she's singing at different keys. And I'm gonna do the same thing that I did with the first verse and kind of cut out some parts so that it's like that, so that the songwriting is featured a little bit more. All right. cut it out, and then
eyes. Ten angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desires, screaming out in vain. Numb from all the noise, desensitized to pain, shifting to uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. Don't drink down the apathy. Feel everything hold on to me.
I think these background oohs need to be separated out, because that's more of like a musical element almost.
Don't drink down the apathy. Feel everything hold on to me.
Because it's not really like a harmony for the like verse being written. It's more of like a musical element. So I'm gonna turn it into a musical element. Still gonna EQ it. Still gonna um, make sure that it's out of the way of the other vocal, of the lead vocal. So I'm still gonna dip that high mids range, and then still gonna cut off the super low lows because I don't want subs in this. I am gonna leave the highs intact though, and then you know what? I'm gonna put this in a group, and then I'm gonna treat the whole group because they're kind of the same thing. They're not kind of the same thing. They're the same take basically. And then I'm going to spread this out too. So this is going to be the right channel. That's going to be the left channel. And again, it's not fully hard right, fully hard left. It's just slight left, slight right.
Down the apathy.
And then I'm going to actually take a compressor and compress the whole group. Same way, just really low ratio, lower threshold. And then I'm going to put reverb on the whole group. Also, a trick too, if you want something to be more in the background, just put more reverb on it. Just dry wet, turn the dry wet of the reverb on it, and it'll push it into the background. It's kind of like like a psychoacoustic trick where if something has more reverb on it, it just seems like it's farther away from you because that's what happens in real life. Like if you're in a church or like a cathedral or something like that, if you're standing 2 feet away from someone, you're not going to hear much reverb. But if they're like 30 feet away from you, you're going to hear a shitload of reverb. So that's what happens that's why when you turn up the dry wet, when you put a reverb directly on something, it pushes it into the background. So that's why I'm doing that to these vocals. And then I'm going to make the decay time longer. Turn up the density a little, turn up the diffuse a little. Just make it sound a little bit more natural sounding reverb. I'll just call them ooh vox.
Feel everything hold on to me.
And then turn the volume down.
Feel everything hold on to me. You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls. Oh, you know I'll find you in the dark hours.
Alright, so this first section, her lead vocal is going, and it's kind of fighting with John Mark's lead vocal.
I'll find you in the dark hours.
Well, it's not really fighting. I don't know, maybe I can leave it in there. I was going to take it out, but she's singing really low. And like a falsetto.
You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls. Oh, you know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls. You know I got you in every moment, every moment. You know I got you in every moment.
1, 2, 3, let's go.
Oh, there's a pause right here. Hold on.
If the world falls, if the world falls.
Alright, I'm gonna take that second one out. That could be a good place though. I'm gonna keep the file because that may be something to use for a different part or maybe in a different drop.
If the world falls.
I might not even have them say if the world falls here. Because there's that other pre-drop vocal. And this section of the song is a little bit more like hard dubstep or harder dubstep than like the melodic beginning.
1, 2, 3, let's go.
This is like the part where the world actually falls. I also I'm pretty sure I used frequency shifter on the instrumental to do that like pitching down that's happening. So that's what I'm gonna recreate on the vocals just to hear it. I probably didn't go that far down, but just to create the automation line, let's do that.
You know I got
So clearly that's not what I did. I'm gonna use the fine control.
you know I got you in every moment, every moment. You know I got you in every moment.
1, 2, 3, let's go.
You know I got you in every moment, every moment. You know I got you in every moment.
1, 2, 3, let's go.
Let me turn this way.
You know I got you in every moment, every moment. You know I got you in every moment.
1, 2, 3, let's go.
Okay. So for the last drop, I'm just gonna leave out the like pre-drop vocal. If the world falls. Okay. Let's delete the extra stuff. There's some cool harmonies in there. Maybe that could be like outro stuff. Let's see. Because I don't really want it during the drop. I just want the drop to live as the drop. So maybe that can go here. Maybe something like that. Oh wait, let's do here.
You know I'll find you in the dark now.
Yeah.
You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls. You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls. You know I got you in every moment, every moment. You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
And I want to match these vocals up a little bit better. I'm going to warp them. Reset watermarkers. No. I'm gonna just consolidate both of them so they're the same uh, length, exact same length. This is kind of a trick in Ableton where you can like warp things at the same time if they're the same length. In this case, though, I don't want to do that. I just want to add in a warp marker there, and then be able to match up the vocals so that they're singing the words at the same time. So I'm going to expand these so I can see the timing. And then, ooh, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. So yeah, let's just try and get it like lined up as close as possible. Also, still, I need to kind of clean up the background vocal or the background of the recording. Let's hear these together.
Find you in the dark hours.
So here with hours, it's a little too long. Wait.
Hours.
I want them to end saying hours at the same time.
Hours. Hours. Dark hours. Hours.
Hours.
Hours. Hours. Dark hours.
Ooh,
You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
Okay, that's cool. That's close enough. It's not like perfect. I don't want it to be exactly perfect, but it sounded like ours was very different. It doesn't have to be exact, but close.
You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
And then now it sounds late for some reason.
You know I'll find you in dark hours. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
Maybe I need to do that. I'm just gonna do that.
Hours. You in the dark hours.
And then so it doesn't sound unnatural, let's do a little fadey boy. Same thing with this. Yeah.
Dark hours. The dark hours. You know I'll catch you.
This is what sounds like. I'm gonna scooch this forward a little.
You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
No. Since those sound fine, I'm just gonna grab the other take.
You know I'll find you in the dark hours. You know I'll catch you if the world falls. You know I got you in every moment. You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
you know I'll catch you in the world.
If the world falls. You know I'll catch you if the.
You know I'll catch you in the
Why didn't it copy? Copy. Paste.
You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
Perfect. That's one thing to do too. If things aren't like lining up properly, but they line up properly with another vocal, just grab the other take.
You know I'll catch you if the world falls.
Okay, so some of you have probably been waiting on the cleanup, like cleaning up the background.
Screaming out in vain, numb from all the noise, desensitized to pain, shifting to uncertain times, immobilized.
So I use multiple different plugins to do this. With John Mark's vocal, you can hear a little bit more of the reverb in the background of the room.
Oh, you
And then in Diana's vocal, you can hear some of the instrumentation happening.
You
So,
know I got you in
I forgot where it
every moment.
was.
You, and you know I'll find you.
But in both vocals, they need a little bit of cleaning up the background. So I use a Waves plugin called the SSLG channel, and I just made a preset which isn't there now. Is it in this one? Is it in the stereo one? No, it's not in either. What happened to my presets? Okay, all my presets are gone tight. So basically, I use the expansion ability. So an expander essentially it's meant to be the opposite of a compressor. So where a compressor brings the dynamics closer together, so I mean it makes quieter things louder and louder things quieter. The expander is meant to do the opposite. It doesn't always work, but in this case it works pretty well. So because it's meant to do the opposite, that means it's making quieter things quieter, more quiet, and it's making louder things more loud. It's really good at making quieter things more quiet, and that's what we want out of this. That's really what we're trying to do here is make the background of the vocal go more into the background. Um, where did I just put that plugin? I don't remember where I just put that. There it is. Alright. So that's on Diana's lead vocal. Yeah.
You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
So yeah, you can kind of hear here, you can hear the background.
You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
Like at the very, very tail end, you could really hear it. Like there. It's really subtle, but it's something that could eventually, when you have 5, 6, 7 different takes of a vocal and they all have background noise in it, the overall, like the sum of all that background noise builds up over time. So from the lead, I'm going to take it out of the lead vocal.
You know I got you.
So you turn up the threshold of this, and then you turn up the range. So this is the dynamic range, the decibel range that you want the expansion to enact on. And then the threshold is just like the threshold for a compressor.
You know I,
So
you know I got you in every moment. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
so now you can hear that little bit of the instrumentation happening at the back end right here. Now it's kind of going away. But if I turn the threshold up, then it's starting to make the vocal itself go away. And that's not what we want. We don't want the vocal to disappear. We want the quiet stuff in the vocal to kind of disappear. So that's where I usually will set my threshold. I usually go to the quietest moment in the recording and then set my threshold there. That way I know that I'm not getting rid of any of the main part of the vocals.
You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
And then with vocals too, I tend to set the release to something fast. So I tend to pull the knob down so it's a shorter amount of time and then set it to fast attack. So because with words tend to be faster. Like if it was like a pad or something like that, then I could have a longer release and not have a fast attack. But words are quick. Words last like 300 milliseconds. So I want the expansion to happen pretty quickly.
You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
Maybe a little
You
longer.
know I'll catch you if the world falls.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
But the problem that I don't want to have is some of the syllables and consonants getting cut off. So like the F from find you kind of gets cut off.
You know I'll find
I'll find you. And you can either adjust the threshold or adjust the release.
I'll find you. I'll find
Maybe let's pull the threshold down a little bit.
you. I'll find you. I'll find you in the dark hours. Ooh, I'll catch you.
Okay, that's a little bit better.
I'll got you.
And then, first of all, I'm going to save this. Save to new file. And then, I don't remember where I saved my presets at. Oh, it's in applications, I think. Applications, and then waves, plugins. What plugin is this? The SSL plugin. Where do I save my presets? I don't even know where this would go. Put into preset menu. There we go. Clean. Let's call it, no, Vox cleanup. And then I'm just going to put size so that I know it's my preset. There we go. And then copy paste this to the other lead vocal here. And then let's have a listen. So I'm going to listen to it without the activation on. Let me just do a full reset. Because now I have to redo what I just did on his vocal because it's going to affect the plugin differently.
I've been watching angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desire.
So turn up the threshold
Screaming
first.
out in vain. I'm from all the noise, desensitized to pain. Shifting to uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside.
So you can see that the release is really important because when the release is all the way up, it just lets all of the background noise come through.
I'm from all the noise, desensitized to pain.
And sounds, you can really hear the reverb happening in the background, but then when I tighten up the release,
I'm from all the noise, desensitized to pain. Shifting to uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside.
it really tightens up, and then all the background reverb is gone.
I'm from all the noise, I'm from all the noise. I'm from all the noise, desensitized to pain. Shifting to uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. Don't drink down the apathy.
I might even need to use a de-reverb on this because the equalization, it's doing something, but it's not fully getting rid of that background reverb. So another plugin that I highly suggest. This is more of like an audio fixing plugin. It's not working. De-reverb. I don't know why. Okay. So this basically analyzes the audio and finds the reverb that's happening in the audio, and then you can just tell the plugin what reverb is good reverb and what reverb is reverb you want to take out.
Angels walk the line.
So first things first, I'm going to hit learn so it learns.
I've been watching angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desires, screaming out in vain. I'm from all the noise, desensitized to pain, shifting to uncertain.
I'll just let the whole thing play through. So one thing about this that is something that you need to kind of pay attention to is not pulling out too much because it will bite parts of the actual vocal that you want. So you don't want to do the de-reverbing too hard.
Oh, I find you in the dark hours. I catch you in the
I'm just going to let it learn all the way through.
I
That way
got
this whole
you
file
in
gets
every
learned.
moment, every
And this
moment.
is part of the reason
You
too
know
why in
I've
the
got
very beginning
you
why I
in
straight up
every
deleted
moment.
the all the instrumental and I replaced it with just the audio file because this plugin is so CPU heavy. I just started hearing the crackling and like my CPU is struggling a little bit to handle.
I've been watching angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desire.
Yeah, see already it sounds better. So like if I turn this off,
I've been watching angels walk the line of
it sounds like he's on a stage almost, or like in a very reverby place. Like it sounds like he's recording in a room that's not treated. Whereas if this was like a live recording, that would sound great. But this is more like a studio recording, and or I want it to sound like more of a studio recording, and then add in the reverb myself manually. Um, so this is doing a pretty good job of pulling out that like live reverb in the background.
I've been watching angels walk the line of sirens and devils.
And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put this before this vocal chain, and then group the vocal chain, and then I'm gonna move this off of that track.
I've been watching angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desires, screaming out in vain.
I'm
I'm
gonna have
from
it
all the
relearned because I
noise,
just
desensitized to pain, shifting
changed
to
all the volume levels
uncertain
for it.
times, immobilized, panicking inside. Don't drink down the apathy. Feel everything hold on to me. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
All right, I think that's good enough to learn.
I've been watching angels walk the line of sirens and devils.
Maybe enhance the dry signal.
Angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desires, screaming out in vain. I'm from all the noise, desensitized to pain, shifting to uncertain times, immobilized, pain. Feel everything hold on to me. Angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desire.
I'm trying to find a sweet spot between where it doesn't sound like it's being affected, but it still is taking out the reverb properly.
Angels walk the line of sirens and devils. Eyes out in vain. Noise desensitized to pain, shifting to uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. Angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desire.
All right, so the whole reason why I moved off the signal chain was so that I could freeze the arrangement because this is a very heavy CPU plugin. So I'm gonna freeze it and then drag the vocal chain back onto it. Hold on one second. I'll BRB. I'm gonna get some liquids inside me. Is that? All right, so let's flatten this And then now this is a new file. It still is, even though Ableton is showing that it's stereo, it still is a mono file.
I've been watching angels walk the line.
And then now I'm going to grab this, put it back on there.
I've been watching angels walk the line.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desires, screaming out in vain.
I don't know if I like that. It kind of messed up the integrity of the vocal. So I'm going to undo. Alright. And then put this back on.
Pain, shifting to uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside.
Actually, let me redo. Can I redo? No, I can't. Oh well, too late. Honestly, I didn't really like how the de-reverbing sound, so
I've been watching angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desires, screaming out in vain. Numb from all the noise, desensitized to pain, shifting to uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. Don't drink down the apathy, feel everything hold on to me. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
alright, so now we have the lead vocals are done, the backup vocals are edited. Pretty much everything is good to go. I am going to work on this a little bit more outside of the stream because this is definitely not finished, but it's almost there. So we have these two groups. What I like doing on the entire group is compressing the whole group. So this is another stage of compression. And this is more so that all of the vocals are coming out at an even volume level. Just like we were doing on the individual tracks.
Times immobilized, panicking inside. You feel it too, don't hold your breath.
Angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desires.
And then again, on the whole group of all the vocals, I do yet another compressor doing the same thing. This one though, I don't want it to be as intense as the other one, so I'm just going to pull it back a little.
Devils, feeding desires, screaming out in vain. Numb from all the noise, desensitized to pain, shifting to uncertain times.
Alright, and then now we're going to do the, let's add in, I love the new Ableton echo delay. It's super duper duper useful, and so let me just use echo. And so I've been using that a lot to do my delays and stuff, especially for vocals. Some of the presets for it too are really good. Here. A lot of the vintage delays ones are really good. I already have one that I have here. I'm going to put that there. Dry wets all the way up because I have it on a send. And then I'm just going to send the whole group to this delay because it's just going to be on everything. Most of the time though, I usually will just have a delay only on the lead vocal. Actually, you know what? Let's just do that. Let's just make multiple. Instead of using it as a send, I'm just going to use it individually on each lead vocal because that's the better way to do it, at least in this specific context. So on this lead vocal, you don't want it on 100% dry wet now. Now you maybe want like 20%.
I've been watching stars drop from the sky, one by one.
And so one thing to note is go to the character page and make sure ducking is on. And then the settings are subjective. They're just whatever you think they should be. But basically it makes it so that the lead vocal or whatever the input is getting, the delay is getting out of the way of that input. And you really want that to happen, especially with vocals, because then it'll sound like doubles of the vocal. It'll sound like like row your boat, row your boat. You don't want it to sound like that. You want it to sound like it's behind the lead vocal.
Panicking inside, you feel it too, don't hold your breath. Don't suffocate, scared of what's out there. You know
Yeah.
it's
And then it's really useful to have this reverb on it because the reverb, like I said earlier, pushes it into the background even more. So it sounds really far away and it sounds really
I've
big.
been watching stars drop from the sky. One.
And then I'm just gonna copy this preset and then put it on John Mark's vocals, and then we've got the same delay happening, or we should.
I've been watching angels walk the line of sirens and devils, feeding desires, screaming out in vain. Numb from all the noise, desensitized to pain, shifting to uncertain times, immobilized, panicking inside. Don't drink down the apathy. Feel everything, hold on to me. You know I'll find you in the dark hours.
Sounds pretty good.
You know I'll catch you in the world falls.
If I turn the instrumental up, we can hear it as it may sound in the end.
In the dark hours. You know I'll catch you in the world falls. You know I've got you in every moment, every moment. You know I've got you in every moment. You know I've got you in every moment, every moment. You know I've got you in every moment.
Nice. All right, so that's that's it for today. At this point, I usually will just export the vocal by itself as an acapella, and then drop that acapella back into the original session. That way, I can do any sort of side chaining. Excuse me. I can add in any reverbs, so that way the song sounds a little bit more cohesive, so that I'm using the same reverb that I used in the instrumental on the vocals. Excuse me. That's why initially I was trying to set the delay to ascend, because these are the sends that I used in the original instrumental. So I could basically just use this as a send for the vocals. That way, when I put it back into the original session, that send being sent to here or to wherever, whatever I set it to, it's going to sound similar. It's going to sound basically the same because it is the same. Yeah, that's it. I'm done for today, guys. Thank you everybody for hanging out with me. I'm gonna be back live again this Thursday, same time. I'm live every Tuesday and Thursday, 1 to 3 p.m. Usually I stream for about 2 hours, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. I will be adding in some game streams too, because I know for whatever reason the OBS that I stream with, they make you pick a game. So I know it says like music, something like Music Box or something like that. But I actually do game pretty hardcore. So some of these streams will be turning into gaming streams. I'm gonna keep the Tuesday and Thursday stream just straight up music production streams, but I will start streaming probably like Apex Legends or maybe something like No Man's Sky or any games you guys are into. Just let me know. Send me a message. Also, check the description. My record label that I just started called Bass Tap Records. We just put out a new record with a new artist named Nuisance. And the song is called Feeling Right, and it's a really dope song, and you guys should go check it out. And like the Facebook page of the Bass Tap page and the Instagram and all that good stuff. Follow me on Instagram, like my page. If you don't already, follow my page.